Hi, this is Jason over at Horrific Nightmares, and today I want to do a review for you for the limited comic book series of The Howling, Revenge of the Werewolf Queen. Now, The Howling, Revenge of the Werewolf Queen is done by a comic book company called SGP, which I was not familiar with. So I did a little bit of research. I looked up online, and it stands for Space Goat Productions. And from what I could see, they're still selling the comic book if you guys are interested. If you're not able to get it from them in that fashion, you can probably order this through your local comic book store in graphic novel form, depending on what your taste is, whether you like to have just one graphic novel or the individual issues. Now, a big shout out to The Last Shoegazer and Salted Earth Productions, who requested that I do this review for this comic book series. I wanted to thank you guys for that, because in doing so, I reread the series yesterday. And the reason why I'm thanking you is because when I first read it, I would read the issues as they come out. And since they come out one every month, sometimes you tend to forget what the last one was about because there's so much time, and and I don't know if I was in a bad mood or if I was tired when I read it, but I didn't really like it. I didn't really care for it. Now, I read all four yesterday in rereading them, and I enjoyed it, which is a strange thing. Kind of shifted. So thank you guys for requesting this. Now, The Howling, Revenge of the Werewolf Queen is a direct sequel to the original Howling movie from 1981. And spoiler alert, if you've never seen the original Howling, I'm going to tell you how it ends, so you might want to skip to later on in my review, so that I don't ruin it for you, because it directly affects the comic book series. Now, the shorthand version is Dee Wallace plays Karen White, a reporter who's terrorized by a serial killer called Eddie Quist, or Eddie the Mangler. That's his name. Long story short, she goes to see a doctor, a psychiatrist, and he recommends she go on a retreat with her husband. And this retreat ends up being a colony of werewolves. A lot of people die. She ends up living after being, I believe, scratched or bitten. I can't remember. It's been a few weeks. But she goes on television to expose that there are really werewolves, and she turns into a werewolf to do this and gets shot with a silver bullet. So that's basically the end of the spoilers. This picks up right where that left off. One of the people who works at her station is named Chris. From the movie, Chris was played by Dennis Dugan, and his girlfriend Terry was played by Belinda Belasky. Now, Terry was one of the first victims. She was killed by Eddie Quist, if I remember correctly. So Karen White was shot by Chris Halloran. And this takes place after all this happens. From the way they explained it, when she was shot, she turns back into a human, so nobody really believes that there are really werewolves, or they're skeptical. So, if you remember correctly, Marcia Quist in the movie was played by Elizabeth Brooks. She was the promiscuous werewolf woman. She is the werewolf queen. And in order to protect her species, she wants to kill the people who had anything to do with that television production. So the guy that was on with Karen White, of course, an accident. He succumbs to an accident, along with other people that were working on the production. And I'm going to leave it there. A lot happens in this comic book. And like I said, I did enjoy it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you with me. I'm going to show you some of the illustrations and some of the alternate covers. This comic book is rated Teen Plus, so there's no nudity, so I can pretty much show anything I want on this. Pardon me. And, you can judge for yourself if it's something you would be interested in. The illustrations, I feel, are, they're decent. I've seen better. I've seen worse. So I'm going to grab you, and we're going to take a look at the Howling. Alright. Now, this is issue number 1. Sorry for the shaky camera. And I just think that cover is completely cool. And like I said, story time. I'm going to show you some of the illustrations in there. This kind of talks about the events that took place at the end of the Howling. Flip some pages so you can see the illustrations. And then I'm going to flip to the back so you can see the cover gallery, which I always thought was cool. I'm not sure if you can still order all of these. I'm sure they should be. I think they're still available because the comic book company made it seem like they were. But at the very end of the comic, at the very end, they give you kind of like a preview of the next comic that's coming in black and white, which I thought was pretty cool. And then they go through the cover gallery. Now, if you recognize this one right here, was a cover you could get. That's the Scream Factory kind of mock cover. The one that I have is similar to the original Howling movie cover, similar. And that's the other cover you can get. And the other cover is on the next page. It's like a black and white. It's pretty. And that's the final cover for the very first issue. These are all covers you can get for the first issue as long as they're readily available. And usually if you do buy the graphic novel, they'll have a cover, like a cover gallery at the very end. So I'm saying usually. I have not seen this graphic novel, but don't think that if you do buy the graphic novel, you're going to miss out on seeing what the covers were. So that was issue number 1. I think that's very impressive. This is issue number 2. Pretty cool cover. Show you some of the illustrations. Focus in on that. Again, I wanted to thank The Last Shoegazer and Salted Productions, so for kind of getting me to read this again, because it was a lot of fun and it changed my actual feeling on the overall comic itself. So I really appreciate that, guys. Salted Earth Productions also requested that I review Hatchet, which I will be doing probably within the next week. So this gives you a preview of the next issue, issue number 3. A brief preview. Now this doesn't give a cover gallery because I don't know if they made additional covers for the second issue. Now the third is where I have a problem, because I think this cover is pretty, I just don't like the illustration itself. I mean, it doesn't change the story, and the illustrations are the same. I just didn't like how it turned out. But showing you some of the pages from the 3rd issue. And we'll skip to the back, where it should still have a preview of the next issue on sale. Sorry for the shaky cam, guys. Hand's starting to get tired from holding this tablet thing. And here's the 4th and final issue. I'll switch hands here. Oof. Hand's starting to cramp up. Back to where I was. Some of the issues if you want to focus in on it. And this being the final issue, it just kind of ends. Now, it doesn't give any kind of a preview for a next volume. I'm not sure how this comic did, but like I said, I liked it. So, if you see there's a board game, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a second. But anyway, now as far as the illustrations go, I'll show these covers again. As far as the illustrations go and the overall story, I'm going to give it a 7.5. I did like the story. I will probably read it again eventually. In the back of the comics, what I was pointing at was Space Goat Productions actually makes board games. Some of the ones I saw are Evil Dead 2, The Terminator, and the Howling board games. And I'm kind of interested in it. I don't know if I'm going to end up picking it up, but you know, I thought they were pretty interesting looking. And like I said, if you go to SGP Comics, Space Goat Productions, you can see their roster of, you know, comic books that they have coming out, and, you know, see if you want to purchase the Howling or if you're interested. So again, I'm going to give this a, I think I said a 7.5 or 7. But that is my review on the Howling, Revenge of the Werewolf Queen. Thank you guys for watching. Till next time, peace.